Okay, everyone. Now it is time for me to tell you about my two favorite historical dramas from the 1930s. And I want to go ahead and let you know what's not on the list because some people might be asking, well, where's Gone with the Wind? Aren't you going to talk about Gone with the Wind? I mean, it's a video series about historical dramas from the 1930s, and well, Gone with the Wind is the most famous one of those. So, why are you not talking about Gone with the Wind? I'll explain it very simply. This is my list. These are movies that I personally get a lot of enjoyment out of. They are moving to me, they are interesting to me, they resonate with me emotionally. And so just because a movie has come down as an icon of cinema, just because it is the best known, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be one of my favorites. And I'll just go ahead and admit it. I don't like Gone with the Wind all that much. It is a gorgeous movie to look at. And if you've never seen it before, just watch it for the technicolor and the costumes because it is a feast for the eyes. But I just don't. I saw it once, and I'm not sorry that I saw it. I mean, actually, I think I saw it twice. Once when I was very young, and then later on when I was in my late teens, early 20s. It is a very long film, and to be up for that, you kind of have to make an emotional investment, which is more than I was willing to make. I just don't care for the story, not really all that fond of its characters. So that's why it's not on my list. Although, if you haven't seen it and you're interested in finding out just what is up with the movie that was the jewel in the crown of the year 1939, then you might want to take a look. So, if Gone with the Wind is not one of my top two favorite historical dramas of the 1930s, then what movies did make that list? These two are very close together in terms of my affection for them and in terms of how often I like to watch them, just to see the drama play out. So, which one am I going to put first? Well, it's really a tie, or if there's any difference, it's very close. And they are somewhat different in terms of their tone, in terms of their emphasis. So, yes, they're both historical dramas, but in some ways it's like looking at apples and oranges. So, just so there will be a number two, I will put it number two. 1936's adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. Now, A Tale of Two Cities is one of two forays that Charles Dickens made into historical fiction. So it's set during the French Revolution. Most of you probably already know this. You may have learned about it in high school. And the two cities are London and Paris. These are the cities where most of the action is set. And what makes this movie so special to me? Well, first of all, it has an amazing central performance by Ronald Colman as Sidney Carton. He is a lawyer who falls in love with a young woman who's in love with another man. And in Dickens's novel, part of the point is that these two men look so much alike that they're practically indistinguishable from one another, at least in terms of physical appearance. But whereas Charles Darnay, the man the woman does love, is very stalwart, clean and sober, respectable. Sidney Carton is a drinker. He's dissipated, sees the world through cynical eyes and is not the kind of person that if you were a rather naive, respectable girl from the late 18th century, not the one you'd want to put a lot of money on. You know, if you were placing your bet, you wouldn't bet on him. But in the end, it's the dissipated lawyer who turns out to be the real hero of everything. And in case you are one of the few people who actually doesn't know how this story ends, I'm not going to give it away because it's a beautiful film, at least to me. First of all, it is a feast for the eye, even though it's not Technicolor like Gone with the Wind. It's black and white, and it is visually stunning. It is absolutely perfectly cast. Ronald Colman playing Sidney Carton gives the anchoring strong central performance. And while the young woman played by Elizabeth Allen, she does her best with what she's given. She does come across as warm and almost angelic, so that you can see why Carton would be moved by her and impressed with her. But she's the young woman. That's pretty much all you can say about her. A lot of these historical dramas did not have very impressive roles for women. But the movie actually does have two, I don't want to use the word strong, I really don't, but two powerful and take no prisoners female characters. One who is pretty much a villain, the other who is Lucy, the young woman's protector and caregiver, mentor, basically her right-hand woman. So Madame Defarge is out for revenge because the aristocrats destroyed her family, very nearly destroyed her, and once the monarchy and the aristocracy are overthrown, she has this opportunity to avenge herself on the family that did her wrong. And Blanche Yerka, an actress who didn't work a lot in the movies, gives a rather powerful, scary performance in this film. But she's counterbalanced by the very English, but the very badass Edna May Oliver, playing Miss Pross, Lucy's nursemaid and protector. Nobody protects like Edna May Oliver protects. She is amazing in it. The two women eventually have a wrestling match towards the end of the film that I admit, to modernize, can look a little silly, but it's just so much fun. It's just so much fun to see the titanesses going at it. It may be my favorite cat fight that I have ever seen on screen. So make of that what you will. And you have a wonderful ensemble cast featuring Basil Rathbone again as the villainous Marquis Saint-Evremond, who is one of the first aristocrats to die. And then you have H.B. Warner. You have Walter Catlett, who is, some of you may recognize him, or recognize his voice anyway, as the man who played Honest John in Pinocchio. And he's really good here as a scoundrel who you don't think there's a heart in there somewhere, but toward the end you kind of think maybe there's one winking into view. There's a lot of really wonderful character actors giving strong performances in this movie. And the action sequences, this could almost belong in action-adventure films, just because the overthrowing of the Bastille is very impressively filmed. And in fact, one of the people who worked on that particular sequence was the man who would come to be the king of 1940s horror, Val Lewton. So when my 1940s project comes along, you'll hear me talk about Lewton again. So this was a proving ground, a starting point for a number of people behind the camera. A Tale of Two Cities. Unfortunately, this one can be a little hard to track down. I don't even think it has a DVD release, although you can rent it through Amazon Prime. So track it down. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago with Goodbye Mr. Chips, bring tissues. You're gonna need them. So next up, at the number one spot is 1935's Best Picture winner, Mutiny on the Bounty, starring Charles Laughton. In the last segment, just a few minutes ago, I talked about Charles Laughton's performance in Rembrandt as being more subtle, being a quieter performance. Here, in Mutiny on the Bounty, he goes way over the top, and yet he never feels false. You never feel quite like he's overacting. He's just that terrifying. He plays the tyrannical Captain Bligh. And against him you have Clark Gable, who is not anywhere near English, but still manages to convince. He doesn't even try for the accent, which was probably a good idea, just using his normal voice to play Fletcher Christian, the man who eventually cracks under the strain of Bligh's tyranny and leads the men in a mutiny. Also on board is Franchot Tone, who plays the narrator. He's kind of the Nick Carraway of the group. He stands back. He's not directly involved in as many events, but he observes the tension between Bligh and Christian and so reports on it. And he also is very good in it. Another one I want to mention is the drunken surgeon, who's played by Dudley Diggs. He gives a wonderful performance, and when he passes on about midway through the film, you do feel it. You feel that a bright spot has gone out, and that leaves the whole environment aboard the Bounty all that much more of a tinderbox for his absence. So wonderfully acted all around. There are some scenes in Tahiti that maybe don't hold up under modern scrutiny, but the movie is a reflection not only of the time that it was set, but also the time when it was filmed. And for what it was then, it does a good job. And you do get some shots that were actually filmed on location in Tahiti. So it's worth a look. That's worth a look. But the movie itself is a wonderfully rollicking, powerful drama about the dangers of absolute power, about the need to stand up to oppressive authority, about the potential consequences and how you weigh them. And again, the three central performances, Charles Laughton, Clark Gable, and Franchot Tone, all really good in this movie. Definitely worth a look. So that's all I've got for this particular genre. I will be back with another set of favorite movies from the 1930s. Haven't decided yet which one I'm going to do next, but you'll be the first to know. So please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this, and I'll see you next time.